well, I mean, in the field for a long time, but as a licensed therapist for about 6 years now. And I have my art therapy credentials through national level and state level, and also my independent license for counseling. And so I'm really happy to be here. I really love the theme of, the month that Elizabeth, created, Be Kind to Your Mind, because I think it's a wonderful just mantra, to have, even as like a countering to, the all the ways that we are not kind to our mind, which, in this world and in this day and age, and sometimes even our society, our culture nurtures ways to be unkind, to your mind as a survival skill, and so we get conditioned to beat ourselves up and, kind of be our own bully in a lot of ways, and so how to change that and create a paradigm shift, within yourself, having a mantra like Be Kind to Your Mind can be so powerful. And so what I'm doing today with the webinar is taking you through a process, an art directive called Soul Mandalas. Sometimes it's interchangeable with empowerment mandalas, and I'm definitely not the one that invented it, or came up with it. I've borrowed it. I've kind of borrowed and gathered different elements to it, and it sort of changes, every time. Sometimes when I, bring it forth to people and, offer it to people as a practice to do. And so with mandalas, it's become a real popular thing in mental health, I think, in the last, probably decade or longer even. But I think it's really helpful sometimes to get a little bit of a background to what something is, and how it came to be. And so I'm going to just spend a moment with that a little bit. And so mandala is a Sanskrit word that means disc or circle, basically. It's just very simple. And it is used in Tibetan Buddhism as a meditation practice, and it helps with, it helps with focusing and concentrating and getting into that meditative state. And the circle, is the symbol of wholeness, coming together, cultivation, and integration. Those are kind of the key words that I like to use when I describe what a mandala is. But I mean, just really kind of getting to the essence of, and so that's when we think of circle, I mean, that's what the essence of the mandala is. It's just the whole circle. And even when we're, getting into sacred geometry, it's the zero. It's kind of the starting point, so I mean, it can go all the way back, right to where the beginning goes of what is a mandala, and so that's where the word comes from. But we see mandalas all over nature, and so when we get into the sacred geometry, I mean, it shows up in everything, and I'm going to do a little bit of a slideshow here in a minute to kind of give you the variations of what mandalas can be, so a lot of, people think of mandala in the way of the Tibetan sand paintings. If any of you have seen those, they're beautiful, they're intricate, they're extremely complex, and so, people get intimidated by that sometimes when it's like, oh, I can't do that, but really, I mean, it can be super simple. It really is just the circle, right? And the coming together and the wholeness. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a circle either. It, so that idea of wholeness, coming, in the practice of bringing wholeness into your being, you know, like that's a mandala practice as a philosophy maybe, right? And so this is why it's kind of gotten really popular in mental health, you know, because I mean it's sort of like well, yeah, you know, that makes sense, you know, and in this way of this practice of cultivation. And then with the marriage of mental health, counseling, therapy, and mindfulness that has happened in the last several years, the mandala just works so nicely with all that. So that's, you know, kind of the background of mandalas and what we're going to be doing today. And so just looking at my notes here, and kind of where my background comes with the mandala is my own practice. I came into mandalas in my own art, and I didn't mean to, really. I just started doing a lot of circles, you know, and a lot of these like designs that were abstract like, but really based off of, you know, images I've seen in nature. And somebody was like, oh, it's like a mandala. And that really got me interested. And, oh, what is that? You know, and how it tied into, you know, the statement that I was trying to make, you know, and it really worked well with it. And then later on, when I got into Carl Jung and his work. And so I wanted to bring in this book. Actually, it's called, oh, it's backwards. It's called Mandala Symbolism by Carl Jung. He was, I mean, really, I mean, in a way, he kind of brought the mandala into, you know, the psychology world. And it didn't get popular, real popular until later on. But he had a daily practice where he did mandalas, and he has a lot to say about them and the symbology of them. And you know, kind of where the roots of it came. But in his work with you know, chronically mentally ill people in hospital settings, you know, he found that there was an archetypal element that people naturally started doing mandalas, you know, in their artwork, or you know, kind of bringing it to the table as a kind of instinctual way of healing, you know, and it just sort of happened naturally. And so, you know, something, you know, what he found was, I wanted to read this real quick, just the circular image of this kind compensates the disorder and confusion of the psychic state, namely through the construction of a central point to which everything is related, or by a concentric arrangement of the disordered multiplicity and of contradictory and irreconcilable elements. This is evidently an attempt at self-healing on the part of nature, which does not spring from conscious reflection, but from an intrinsic impulse. And so he really, you know, captured kind of what happens in the psyche when we're doing this practice, you know, and this kind of meditative, you know, practice and working with the archetypal element of it. So I like to quote Jung as much as I can. I'm kind of come from Jungian philosophy and or a Jungian background. So, and then he goes on to say that it's the archetype of wholeness. And so, so what we're doing today is we're cultivating the wholeness and connecting to that archetype through the practice of creating, you know, mandalas. And so, you know, you can work with any material that you have to do this. I like to keep it simple and keep it small, you know, and so I wanted to, you know, kind of offer to you, like, this can be a practice that can become like a card deck in a way, you know, where you kind of draw on these mandalas. They're, you know, so keeping it small is good because you can sort of carry it with you. You know, you can carry this stack of cards. I don't know if any of you have heard of these, like, you know, they have so many different kinds, but there's like Louise Hay has like a a card deck, you know, out, Power Thought cards, and Don Miguel Ruiz with his 4 agreements, but there's so many different kinds where people just pull, and it's sort of these inspirational affirmation type of things that help you get through the day, and, you know, are sort of these things that you can just pull from. And so that's the way I use it. You know, I will create these mandalas, and I might, you know, pull one of my cards, and I'll just put it even in my car, you know, or wherever I'm at, you know, my space for the day, so that it can be a reminder, you know, of something that I'm trying to cultivate and generate. Okay. And so, yeah, let me pull up just, I wanted to share a slideshow real quick of just an example of mandalas, just to give you sort of a general idea. Of some of what I, you know, the wide range of what they can be and look like. So let's see. Okay, and so to share the screen, hold on, let me see. Is it sharing or?
Yes, it's starting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. And then to do the slideshow, there we go. So this is just going to run through a few examples of what mandalas can be. So they can be very intricate, colorful, you know, symmetrical, starting with a central point. You know, a lot of them start with the central point and kind of go out, or have some kind of balance to it. This is a cell. And so, you know, the mandalas show up in our body, you know, and even plants, and it's one of the sand paintings. So repetition sometimes is an element of the mandala. Mirroring, reflection.
Is anyone talking?
Is that art?
Yeah. Who's that? I can't.
That's Alanna. So I'm just showing some images right now, and these are examples of mandalas before we get started on
Fantastic.
the art process.
Truly nature is full of
Yes.
things, my God. Oh boy.
Yeah. All right, and so that's at the beginning, I think. And then how do I stop? Oh, here we go. Okay,
Nice
and
go
ahead.
It was nice to see our pale blue dot as a mandala. You know what the pale blue dot is?
No.
The pale blue dot is what Carl Sagan, the famous astrophysicist, called our planet Earth when he had Voyager 1 from 3 million miles away, turn the camera around, and all we could see is a pale blue dot. and that's our mandala.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes.
Hello, Craig. It's nice to see you.
Hi, Art. You as well.
I'm incognito today. I need a bad haircut, so I ain't going to show my face.
You are looking. You
That's
are
all
looking a
right.
little
It's good
fuzzy.
to have you here. And yeah, hello, if you of you joined us. And so we're going to go ahead and, go into the process and the directive now. And those that you joined a little late, we are recording this. And so, you can kind of look back, to see what you missed at another time. But basically, I was just explaining what mandala was or is, and kind of the history of it. As it's come into to the profession of, therapy and counseling in the mental health world. And so so the second part of the title, today is the meditation on self-compassion. So what I am wanting to invite you to do is to use whatever materials you might have in your environment. And so you saw in some of those images that they were even, they were impermanent materials, right? So you can use anything. It doesn't have to be art materials necessarily. You can use like arrangement and placement of, the mandala. And right now, today, we are focusing on mostly just the practice and the meditation process of that and the cultivation of self-compassion. And so with what I, with what I usually use, I often will start with a tiny, sheet of paper, usually a thicker sheet of paper, this small. And I might have an idea of what I want to cultivate, but not always. Sometimes the image starts first, the mandala starts first, and I start in the center, kind of work my way out, and then it tells me what it is. It might be abundance, or it might be balance, or, it might be a word, it might be a phrase. Sometimes I might, have an idea of what I'm trying to bring forth, and maybe today for you that is self-compassion. What is the image of that? What is that symbol for you today? And just let it show up. You don't need to think a lot about it. I don't want you to think a lot about it. It is a meditation. So you just think of I am cultivating this today. That's all you have to think about, and just let yourself work. And so, yeah, what I do is I start with the little paper, and I usually will, I might start with pencil, I might start with a marker, or colored pencil, and a lot of times I'll add a little bit of watercolor in there. But that's, the materials I have available, but you work with what you have. And if you have any struggle with that, we can, let me know, and maybe I can try to help you figure that out, with where to start with the material. But kind of taking inventory of what you have in your environment. And so when, some questions to consider when you're starting and when you're working on this is, sorry, I lost my space here. So some questions to consider is what do you need right now? Right now, here in the moment, today? What do you need to affirm in yourself? What needs cultivated? What needs planted? What needs generated? And what needs to be integrated into your whole being? And I can even put those on the chat window too, to kind of refer to them if you need to. But it's mostly, I'm just throwing it out there, and you kind of catch what you caught just now. And you can go ahead and begin, and we can, I'd like to take maybe 20 minutes, with this, and just see, if you only do one mandala, that's fine. You might end up doing more. And then we can share a little bit at the end of how that was for you. If you have any questions, if you want to share your image or your piece that you make, okay? Any questions right now? Okay, all right, go ahead and get started, and then I'll tell you kind of 1 minute before to, so maybe leave your mic on or something so that you can hear me and just kind of calling you back. Okay. And I'll put those in the window chat.
Yeah, put them in the window. You want to give me just one of the major prompts?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually post it right now to the
Okay.
kind of the directive I had typed up here, even though I didn't copy it or say it exactly like that, but that's all right. Okay. Okay, so this is the directive with the questions for you to reflect on.
I'm not seeing them yet.
Oh, really? Is anybody seeing them in the chat window?
I
Oh,
don't
in
know.
the chat window.
Oh, yeah, it's on the chat. You have to have your
Yeah.
chat window up. Okay,
Oh, I see. There it is. Yeah.
all right.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Very good.
Okay.
Greg, are you part of LifeLink?
We should probably talk offline, Art.
Sure, yeah. We'll have to do that. Sorry to bother people. Time is gone.
What's that, Art?
I say time has flown. Time has
I
flown.
know.
Flown, yeah.
Yeah, let's take, how about like 4 more minutes? Does that sound okay for folks? Okay.
Unknown caller.
Just finish up any last details you're working on. So yeah, I would like to kind of open it up, and if you if you want to share, you can share, and I'm not going to make anybody share. But if you'd like to share, what you noticed, what your process was, what your image is, and yeah, whatever you want to share about the experience. All right, I see you have your piece up. Yeah. Maybe if you want to go first, or you're muted right now.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, there you are.
Can you hear me? You can hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to have much to say. Looking at those directions, I finally realized I just decided I wanted to choose silence as my need, and I don't need to say more about it in words, and I'll just show you what I came up with.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Thank you, Art.
Yes.
I'm happy to share.
Great.
So I drew a card while you were talking. I went and I pulled a card out of my Love Yourself deck, which I love. And the card that I pulled was I love myself totally in the now. And so I was just feeling really full and attracted to the color green. And then like you, with your circles, I like spirals. So I have no idea where this came from. It just kind of got crazy.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
And then it looked like an eye, so I kind of went with the eye. And
Nice. Beautiful.
Very good.
that was fun. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
I'll go.
Okay.
I have a combination of arts and cats with the yellow and the spiral. And my intuition was just saying work on focus because I need it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I didn't have this blue coming out of the yellow, but I felt like it needed to expand out of the container. And then this is kind of like my heart space, and really vibrating out is really where I want my eye to focus on. So first it was like an eye, but then it just morphed.
Nice.
Beautiful.
I mean, I can go. This is what I came up with. And I think as I was trying to ask the question over and over, at first I just felt like I could hear my inner thoughts, just, what do I need? What do I need? And then all of a sudden you kind of go in a direction, and it's kind of interesting because I didn't realize when that change happened. And I think right now, because my work days are really, really long, I think they've gone longer because of Zoom. I normally work from home, and so I have a schedule, and now everybody else wants to do Zoom on top of what I normally had. So my days are really long. And I think what I really ended up focusing on was like structure, and like everything was very, very organized and categorized and structured. And I think that's kind of what I'm craving and what I need right now is a little bit more structure. And just thank you for the time for silence. I think that we're always going, and it's really hard to find that time to just slow everything down. So that was really, really peaceful.
Great.
Will you hold it up again, Cindy, just for a second?
It's beautiful.
Okay, I'll go. So here's mine. And I was trying to figure out, I'm really into circles, so I wanted to make sure I had a circle. It's like, how am I going to make a circle? I couldn't find my compass. I found a roll of duct tape.
Nice. Resourceful.
And so the inside of the circle is the inside of the duct tape, and the outside of the circle is the outside of the duct tape. And as they say, duct tape is really good for all sorts of things except duct work. It's terrible for duct work. So, as Alanna indicated, I didn't really start with a theme, but I sort of ended up coming up along the way with one or a few. So that's those two circles are pretty much the sun, which for me represents warmth and light, which I'm pretty fond of. And then the rays coming out from the sun, the purplish ones, are basically, I thought of those as emotions. And to me, emotions are kind of wavy, and they're up and down and all over the map. And some are bold, and some are long, and some are short, and some are weak and faded. And that's just kind of the way emotions are to me. And then that symbol in the center, that triangle, is the Greek symbol delta, which stands for change. And there's change in my life that I'm trying to effect right now. And then, of course, there's change that just kind of comes at us, that whether we want it or not, change happens.
Mhm.
And so that's what that symbolizes.
Yeah.
And another thing, I also thought of connection, because I actually found a box of crayons, which I hadn't pulled out in forever in my closet. And I didn't pick any color that was like blue or red or green or orange. It was all like red, yellow, or yellow, red, or blue. And so they're all that. And so somehow they're all connected because of that thing, you know, that there's violet red, and then there's red, yellow, and then there's orange, yellow. And so there's some sort of connection going on because of that.
Awesome. Yeah,
Fun.
good observation.
I didn't realize we were going to be doing this. And so I'm glad we did.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I'll share one of mine here. This, I don't know if, but this one it just represents the unknown and embracing it and trusting. I watched a documentary recently about black holes, and so it's been very inspiring for me. I think it's inspired that, and just like, you know, the ultimate unknown, right? And and kind of how we're all in this, you know, right now, the space of the unknown, and how it's really requiring a lot of trust. And what I noticed when I was actually making this one, I was really anxious, actually. So it wasn't a calming thing, but it was okay, because then I did this one right afterwards, and this one, it's supposed to, originally it was, you know, when I didn't add the color, it was chaos, but it doesn't feel chaotic. So I think it's different now. And I'll have to kind of let it tell me what it is, but it actually was calming. And so, yeah, maybe movement. I think that's movement. So yeah, and that's, you know, I think that this directive is just, it's a wonderful meditation practice for anybody. And you know, it's not something that you have to be an art therapist to, you know, do with your clients. I don't, you know, it's not limited, it's not restrictive, you know, in that way. This is something that can be for everybody. It's very, I think it can be really positive in just that piece of integration and cultivation. And so, yeah, and we have, you know, like a few more minutes if there are any other thoughts, you know, any of you have, or reflections or questions, I'll open it up for that.
I think for me, I work with I'm an evaluator, by the way, so I'm not a therapist, but I work with a lot of agencies that provide therapy, and one of them provides ACT services, and the other one is a social detox center. And I think that integrating some of this art therapy and would be really helpful with some of the population, especially with all of the comments that I've been hearing recently in terms of increased anxiety and, you know, even having difficulties with trying to settle their minds and trying to do meditation. And so I think I'm definitely going to share this with a lot of the programs. So yeah, I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Alanna,
Thanks
I
for
have a
being
quick
here.
question.
Yeah.
What sort of time frame do you give clients when you're doing this? Do you do the 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I've been in the one in the clubhouse where we'll take the whole 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of this is, how do you feel about music? I've experienced this exercise with music and without. And I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Music can be really influential to the psyche, you know, in the process and mood. So those are just all considerations, you know. And so whenever I have music with like groups or in session, I always ask first if they want it, you know. And some don't, you know, and I always actually let clients know my bias around, or just, you know, like giving them that information, you know, where it can really influence your mood. It can really influence the trajectory of what you create today, you know. And that, so in that way, the silence is really valuable too, because it actually allows space to go inward and be with yourself, you know. But sometimes clients can't tolerate that, you know, as much. And so if they're completely new to like mindfulness and meditation, then some light music might be helpful for them, you know, and just easing into being with themselves, you know. So if you're having music, I would have it without words, you know. So instrumental is usually safe, you know, that's calming, not too, I mean, it depends on, but like with this directive specifically, I would have it more like meditative, you know. Some of those like yoga tracks are really nice, you know, or Reiki tracks are really nice. So yeah, good question. Okay, anybody else?
I had a question actually
Sure.
for Craig. Craig, I'm sorry to intrude with personal, but it's not personal, but if you want to talk to me, call the receptionist at Lifelink and give them your number and tell them to call me and I'll call you. How about that?
I will. And I have I will, Art. And I have a question for Alanna. Can you combine mandala with collaging?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. And there's a whole you know, thing called soul collage, which is sort of very much in this realm too. And yeah, I've done a lot of collaging with mandalas and used various materials,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes I use the circle as a container, you know, and just that kind of framework or containment, you know, for the collage. But you know, sometimes it's really just working with those themes of the mandala, you know, that piece of integration. Oh my gosh, collage is amazing for integration work.
Yep.
So yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Alanna.
Yeah, thank you everybody. This was really fun. I really enjoyed being here with you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the process.
Yes, thank
And on
you.
behalf of the Lifelink, thank you, and spread the word. We've got another free webinar next Wednesday with our very own Craig O'Hare, who's on our board of directors and has created a survival guide to deal with issues of depression. And the guide itself is on our website, and we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of that. But spread the word. That's going to be a good one as well. And these are recorded, so you can always come back to them. And we look forward to continuing building our community in this way.
Yes,
Great.
and congratulations, Greg. How wonderful.
Thank
For
you.
your board membership. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alanna again for today.
Yeah, thanks, Alanna.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And Elizabeth, I've been wearing my Be Kind to Your Mind t-shirt on the trails. And I love it when people read it out loud back to me. They're like, yeah, be kind to your mind. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh yeah, and Elizabeth, I take an extra large.
Gotcha. No, you got one coming. And we're actually going to be doing a video. And I'll send the instructions out, and I'll include our webinar participants in case you want to send a little part of you doing this little chant, be kind to your mind. And we're just going to, yeah, you can do it. We're just going to build like a big grid out of all of us chanting that, and it'll be a fun way to share the message. So I'd love for Kat and Craig and Arthur and Alanna, all of us. Cindy, would love to have you part of it.
Great.
Look for more info.
All right. Awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Really
Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very
Bye.
good. Bye. Bye all.